You're listening to the My Work, My Life show,
brought to you by Edge Executive Search.
For more information, contact us on
www.edgeXEC.co.za now.
Hi everyone, welcome to my first My Work, My Life for 2017. We're hoping you have an amazing new year. Continuing from our launch in December, our focus is to discuss and debate and equip you with tools to help you get a job, build your brand, enhance your career, and impact any issues relevant to you finding a job. So our guest today, which we're very excited about, is the founder and managing director of Talent 360, a specialist in talent management, consulting and training business, Natalie Singer. Natalie is an expert with more than a decade's experience in the South African labour recruitment and staffing industry. Hi, Natalie.
Hi, Janice. Thanks for the opportunity.
Natalie, you in 2014 and 2016, sorry about that. In November, you did a show on Classic FM on the future of work with Michael Avery, where you spoke about some of the changes that affect the new way of work, which is the theme for our show today. Could you tell us a bit more of the old way of work and where we came from in South Africa?
Great, thank you. Yes, traditionally South Africa has been a manufacturing style environment. We rely a lot on our resources, mining, coal, etc., as well as manufacturing, and a lot of our education system as well as the job market has been geared around that. Of course, we now globally are facing the fourth industrial revolution, which is really a dramatic shift into the knowledge economy, taking advantage of technology which enables automation, including in many of those industries. We're starting to see now, for example, the mining sector having to invest in robotics in order to go deeper from a safety point of view, but also from a cost and effectiveness point of view, as well as robotics in something as simple as, well, not so simple, I suppose, manufacturing of cars. What that means, though, is that we now have a skills transfer that needs to take place, where we are equipping individuals and individuals are equipping themselves to be able to be employed in the new economy. This then allows for a rise of new kinds of work, as well as, of course, the demise of old kinds of work. And as individuals, it's really about making sure that you understand what is changing and how you can empower yourself to stay employed.
Fantastic. Thanks, Natalie. So obviously, if we talk about my parents and my grandparents, the way things were, and we basically talking about the last 10 years, not necessarily 1952. Could you elaborate on that? How you've experienced it in your career in the past 10 years, and where we're heading to then from there?
Okay, well, we've seen dramatic shifts in the last decade. I've been in recruitment now for just more than 15 years, which seems a blink of an eye in my life and a long time in other ways. And when I started, for example, we didn't even really work with email. Fax was the way that we worked, and predominantly hand delivering CVs, both for candidates coming to apply for a job, as well as us going to deal with clients as a recruiter. And that meant that, we relied on traditional methods like running an advert in a newspaper, for example, and people having to go on a Monday and a Wednesday, look at the workplace and have a look at jobs. Nowadays, of course, we're all online and it's 24/7, and people have access to information as well as abilities to apply in many different ways. And that's changed the game for good ways, and of course, I won't say bad ways, but it has changed things when it comes to how you think about how people learn about you and what they learn about you.
Absolutely. And I think the main point there would be if I think about the previous generations, you would finish school, you would perhaps go to university, get a degree, and then be in your job till you retire, or you would have gone to government services such as the army or something else, and be in that career till the day you retire. That's not the case anymore today.
Definitely not. So both of you and I fall in the Generation X, at least for now. And 80% of us no longer work in the field for which we qualified. I study sports journalism of all things, and I've been and done many different things in my 20 years in the world of work. When we think about the millennials, which of course is the generation that is now entering the workforce at a rapid rate, and within a couple of years will be 75% of the workforce, these are individuals who are going to choose to study something today and potentially even tomorrow realize, hey, this isn't what I thought it was, or it's not exciting enough anymore, and are changing. And whilst that's exciting, it does prove challenging to our traditional sort of job market, where you go into a career and you build experience in that career and you move up a hierarchical ladder, and when you look for a new job, they look at what have you been doing, and we then employ you in that same line of work. We're still stuck in that, unfortunately, when the reality is that many of the best people are in fact jumping around, and so their CVs don't look beautiful, neat and tidy in one career lane.
Absolutely. And let's talk about, the fact that 75% of the jobs in 2025, according to the experts, have not been created yet. So what are we really talking about if we're talking about this new way of work? Is it then, it's perceived as job hopping, perhaps, but, perhaps we've got the wrong end of the string here. What is your opinion on that?
Definitely, and I think what we have to think about is this concept of skill rather than job. And I think we still use the terms interchangeably. So we think about a skill as being a job. So I'm an accountant, and that's my skill, rather than looking at saying what skills fall within the job of an accountant, because some of the skills an accountant uses, they could use running a business, they could use in any line of work. So we need to actually break it down to skills. And I think if we're talking to individuals, that would be one of my key messages today, is to say, rather than focusing on giving yourself a label in a particular career, is thinking about how can you better understand your core skills. What are you good at? How are you good at those? And how can you make sure that future employers or future businesses you want to do work with, because you're not necessarily going to be employed full time, that's another thing that's changing, can see what those skills are and how they would be of advantage to them in the job that they want you to do at that particular point in time.
Okay, so if we're talking about skills versus job, what skills are currently, in demand or were in demand, perhaps a year or two ago? And if we're talking about the new way of work for, in 3 years in 2020 or in 2025, even further, what are those skills and how has it changed? What skills do I need to acquire as a job seeker or to keep myself relevant in this new way of work?
Okay, so if we have a look at the World Economic Forum, which is really who the world looks to give some context and meaning to what the economy looks like, in particular jobs, they've given the indication of the top 10 skills that were of high demand in 2015, and right at the top of the pile was complex problem solving, and followed closely by coordinating with others, or collaboration as we might know it. If we then look at what they're projecting for 2020, which always seemed a million miles away, and it's actually, as you've pointed out, 3 years away, complex problem solving remains at the top of the pile. And I think this is really important because we live in an ever more complicated space. We are surrounded by huge volumes of information, and we need to be able to unpack that information and figure out what is the problem and how do we create a solution. What has changed, though, is the second and third on the ranking in terms of the skills is critical thinking and then creativity. Now, both complex problem solving and critical thinking are great, but computers can do that too. So artificial intelligence, which is something that I think many of us worry about, robots or computers taking our jobs, they can do complex problem solving and they can do critical thinking to a point. So they can do what they've been taught to do, and they can do 1 million calculations a minute, far quicker than our brain can do. But what a computer can't do is be creative. And so I think in everything we do, whether you're an accountant who's relying on numbers or whether you're in a more traditional creative space like advertising or marketing, you need to beef up your creativity, your ability to think out of the box, so to speak. Interesting, we're sitting inside a box right now, 27 boxes studio, is think outside of the box, and to make sure that you are constantly thinking of different ways of doing things rather than being stuck in one way and one-dimensional thinking.
Yes. The buzzword, obviously, or some of the buzzwords would be Uberization, online work, digital work, and obviously big data is at the top of the list. But what does that mean for me at ground level, ground zero as a job seeker? I might be a PA, or I might be, like you mentioned, an accountant, or for that matter, a flight attendant, whatever it might be. And I hear, the buzzword big data. Would that then imply I need to learn how to code to have a job in 3 years? What does it really mean for me to align to the new way of work?
Okay, so big data really is a universal term that's used to collectively talk about all the information that exists. We're creating information at a rapid rate every single day because we're all connected to the internet, we're all publishing all the time, and so we're growing this mass of information. What's interesting about big data is that it has created a whole new career space, and that's for data analysts, data scientists, people who are going to have to be employed by companies to make sense of all this information.
What is a data scientist?
So a data scientist is somebody who is employed by a business to basically look at all of the information that's collected by a business. So let's think about in a retail space. So in a retail company, they're obviously collecting information all the time about your buying habits. Loyalty cards, for example, we think it's great because you get some cash back every 3 months.
Yes.
But of course, what they're doing is tracking our spending habits.
Sure.
When do we buy? What do we buy? How much do we buy of it? Now, it's all great that they're collecting all this vast amount of information in a database somewhere. But how do they make sense of that and use it to their competitive advantage? And that's where they bring on somebody who has a very high level of numeracy, of course, because they're dealing with numbers. They have an intuition around economics and maths and accountancy in some spaces. Mm-hmm. But most importantly, there's somebody who can see through clutter and create stories to say, well, let's have a look at all this information that's in numbers on a page, and then let's think about what does this say about the people, what is their story, what are their buying habits, why do they buy like this, how do we then appeal to them when it comes to the product choices we put on the shelf, how we advertise to them, how we communicate to them. And so that's really what a data scientist does, is they take this load of information and try and put it into a story that can be sold into a business, whether it's to the finance department, whether it's to the marketing department, whether it's to communication department, customer services.
Okay. So I'm in a corporate job at the moment, working from 8 to 5 with half an hour lunch. Obviously, the new way of work is not settled into corporate South Africa as such. What would need to change for that mindset shift to happen from an employer point of view and from an employee point of view, and how would me being in a normal 8 to 5 job, how can I equip myself going forward to be able to be prepared for the new way of work?
So absolutely, I think it's not just South Africa. Many countries are still grappling this idea of saying we're shifting away from an idea where we pay you for your time and we start paying you for your brain. So in the knowledge economy, it's not around somebody standing. Now, of course, there are certain jobs where being in a physical place for a certain period of time is required.
Yes.
So in a retail environment, for example, or a receptionist,
Sure.
we need someone on the front desk from 8 until 5, and that's not a job that can be Uberized or remotely accessed, unless we go to those which I find highly annoying, those automated responses when you phone in and press a number and you can't find out how to get to the right person.
Exactly.
So I still like to talk to a person.
Yeah.
Many other jobs which are knowledge economy driven and brain power driven means that I can have my brain switched on at any time of the day. And for some of us, we're better in the morning. Some of us are better at night.
True.
And so taking advantage of individuals' own bio and circadian rhythms means that they can be better. If I want to be a night owl, I certainly can't go into the office and collaborate with people at that time. But we can in other ways. So if we have a look at that, what really needs to change is the performance management aspect, which is to say companies need to shift away from managing people based on time and if I can't see you not working, to really being clear, and again this would be for the individual as well, is to make sure that you fully understand what the company wants from you, by when, and in which format. And then of course to deliver on that, so that they're able to trust you in future, that even though I can't see you, I know that you're doing what we need you to do and you're delivering it to the highest quality on time.
Okay. And what would you give as top tips for candidates applying for jobs students just graduating from university, what would be your advice for them to prepare themselves to go into the new way of work in future? Is it saying everybody should become self-employed, start their own businesses, have 3 jobs a day? What advice can we give them going forward?
Okay, so I think the first thing is that there is no one size fits all. So what my number one piece of advice would be to every individual is to say, don't think about being job secure. Because how secure is a job? A job is only secure as the business you're working for, the industry you're working for. For a long time, and you talk about the old way of working, was saying, I want to work for the state, or I want to work for a big corporate because, geez, I'll have a job for life and I can start at the bottom and work my way to the top. And whilst that may still exist in certain spaces, it's not necessarily true. And in fact, the biggest job cuts we're seeing, the biggest redundancies we're seeing are coming out of corporate, where they have the ability to invest in higher levels of technology to be able to replace certain jobs. Of course, not all of us are cut out to be self-employed either from a point of view of entrepreneurial skills, which we can acquire, or have the capital to set up our own businesses. But what we should be focusing on is saying, how can I make sure that I'm employment secure? And so employability means I have the skills that are desirable in the market. I have a good reputation. I have a good track record that makes me somebody who people want to work with, whether that's on a contract basis, whether it's a part-time basis, whether it's a full-time basis. And so what you need to look at is saying, how do I build my brand credibility? Talking again, going back even just 15 years, when I was interviewing a candidate for a job, what I saw is what I understood. What they told me in the interview is what I believed. I did a reference check with their previous employer. What they told me is the sum total picture of what I had of that individual. That's not the case today. So today, you're going to be Googled for sure. Whether that's by the recruiter, if you're working with one, or whether it's by the company, they're going to do that. So if you haven't already done it, please go and Google yourself. You may be surprised by what comes up. Now, if you have a fairly common name, some of that stuff might not even be you. But of course, remembering that the other person doesn't know which you are. So you want to make sure you Google yourself. What comes up is good. So think about your social presence. Make sure that you are not doing anything deliberately harmful or inadvertently harmful. And of course, we've seen a slew of really bad social media experiences where people are saying and doing things that later come back to bite them and will live with them forever, because nothing is ever deleted from the internet. Obviously stay away from the bad stuff, but also use social media to advantage. So as much as companies are using social media verification to check for any potential risk, they're also using it to get a better sense of who you are. So if you're able to make sure that your online presence speaks strongly about your skills, your experience, and your network, that will definitely help you to get a better leg up in the job market and stand out from others.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Natalie, for your insight on the new way of work. I think even though there might be a lot of challenges ahead, these tips and advice you've given us today could certainly help everybody to improve their skills and at least prepare themselves for the new way of work.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Have you ever thought about the power of social media? Social media has the power to make your business grow. Grow! Yeah! Why don't you let us manage your social media? Because our business is to see your business grow. Visit us at www.bstownmedia.co.za.
Following today's show on the new way of work, here are 5 takeaways that you can use to improve your own career prospects in 2017.
Number 1, go and do a social media audit. And by that, I mean Google yourself and see what's available. Secondly, go and have a look at each of your social media profiles. And if you haven't already done so, check your privacy settings. If it's in the public domain, it can be used against you or for you. My personal recommendation would be things like Facebook, Instagram, and those social media channels that you use for personal interactions with your friends and family. Probably set those to private. Of course, your LinkedIn profile should definitely be one that is publicly accessible. Remember too that even though you have privacy settings, think too about how people could tag you in. There is a setting on Facebook in particular where you can ask for permission before it's put into the public domain, because you may have friends tagging you into pictures that are not what you want in the public domain that become public via their profiles. Number 2, if you haven't already got a LinkedIn profile, please go today and set one up. This is absolutely essential. LinkedIn arguably replaces the traditional CV, and so it needs to be there. Make sure the information is accurate, up to date, and that you include wherever possible your skills, ideally endorsed by other people. Third-party references are always good. And if you haven't already got some, endorsements or testimonials will pretty much replace the traditional work reference going forward. In terms of that, perhaps you want to have a look on the internet for some resources that can give you some guidance on how to get your LinkedIn profile into tip-top shape.
One of these resources obviously being Edge Executive Search's own blog called Edge Rap, which you can find on www.edgezec.co.za. And one of the first blogs were how to get noticed on LinkedIn and how to improve your LinkedIn profile. There are many other resources on the internet that you can also access to give you guidance on what would be best practiced in 2017.
Excellent, thanks. 3, I would suggest that you go and spend a little bit of time writing down what you believe your current skills are, particularly those that align to what is in demand in the workplace, and then set yourself some goals for 2017. How can you add to your skill set if you don't already have some of those key skills that are in high demand? And those that you already have, how can you update them or improve them? Now, there are many ways to do this, and it doesn't have to cost you money. You can have a look at free online courses. In fact, some of the top universities in the world, including Harvard and MIT, offer a lot of online free resources. Go and have a look at them there. And then of my personal favorite, of course, is reading. Read whatever you can get your hands on, particularly business-related books, self-help books that are more focused on how you can improve your abilities to sell yourself effectively, build your brand. And then think about following some key people online. So if you have a particular interest in a certain field, why not have a look at who the gurus are in that space and then follow them on LinkedIn or on Twitter or on Facebook and learn from the best. 4, think about your elevator pitch. Now, in essence, your elevator pitch is your 30 seconds to a minute, which is named for getting in a lift with someone and someone says, so tell me, Skulk, what do? You literally have the 30 seconds it takes to move from one floor to the next. How would you sell yourself? And it's not about what you do. It's about who you are and how you can be of value. So think about your elevator pitch, write it down, think about some good words, short, concise, because of course we live in a scan, not read environment. And this will be really useful when it comes to writing motivations for applications, for selling yourself in an interview, and particularly in a telephonic screening, which is pretty much how interviews are happening first and foremost. And then finally, think about how you can broaden your experience. If you are recently graduated from university, the age-old I can't get a job without experience, I can't get experience without a job, can really be helped by volunteering your services, interning where you can. Every experience you get is an opportunity to open doors, to add to your portfolio, and to perhaps discover something about yourself. If you're currently employed, think about how you can broaden your experience beyond your direct job. So if there are opportunities within the business that you work in to volunteer on a cross-functional project, for example, or where you might get involved in some CSI activities or volunteer, please do. All of those things count in your favor, not only when it comes to your own personal fulfillment, professional development, but also to give you access to new skills, new opportunities, and new people, which will help you to be a more valuable employee in the future. Thank you and all the best.
You have been listening to the My Work, My Life show on brandlife.co.za.
Proudly brought to you by Edge Executive Search.
Visit Edge Executive Search on
www.edgexec.co.za now
for more opportunities, events, and our latest podcasts.